Welcome, everybody, to our second Saturday's poetry reading. My name is Dan Kerr, and I have the privilege to be your moderator of this monthly poetry reading hosted by local poet Kathy Donnelly. As I mentioned, those of you, we have both the featured reader and you all have an opportunity to read. So if you want to be one of the people to participate in the open read, put your name in chat and we will call upon you in the order that you put your name. Please keep your microphone muted. We do believe feedback is a gift. So if you see something that you like what we've done, if you see something you think we can improve on, if I make any mistakes, and I do make errors, please, feedback is a gift. It's very simple email, danielbkerr@verizon.net. I share all feedback with Kathy, and we reflect on that feedback as we go forward. We've been doing this virtual program now for almost about 4 years, and we continue. I think we've got a formula that works, but we continue to refine it, so we look forward to your feedback. We plan to go from roughly 11 to 12. We started a couple of minutes late because a couple of people came in late, so we'll probably go a little bit past 12. We may flex a little bit depending upon how many people want to participate in the open read and how long the read is. As far as our planned agenda, I'll get you settled. I'll officially welcome you, and then I'll turn it over to Kathy, and then Kathy will introduce our featured poet, Kris Janvier, who will be our featured poet. Then we'll do the open read, and then we'll bring Kris back for an encore. And then Kathy will give some concluding remarks and announce the poet that we have in December. This is one of several outreach programs that we do here at All Souls Church. And I know you're here for poetry, not for evangelization. So I'm only going to mention three things that we do. And I'm going to mention those three things that we do, which historically the poets are very much involved in. So we do a concert series once a month. And the concert we've got coming up is on December 7th. And this is our annual Lessons in Carols concert. So what we do is we tell the story of the Nativity, and we tell it through readings from Scripture, and then each of the Scripture readings is followed by a musical interlude, either by our soprano Heidi Schneider, Dan Kinney, the church organist, or also we have some musicians from the local Roman Catholic Church. And if you look at all those people on the altar, you might say, gee, that's a whole bunch of people on the altar. Well, that's because the readings are done by members. Last year, we had 11 different faith communities involved. So these were not readings from people from All Souls. These were from all churches in the area. And that was a great experience last year. We've actually expanded it to 13. So we'll have 13 different churches actually doing the readings this year. And it's interesting to get all the different churches to gather together for a common program. So that's December 7th. Those concerts are at 6. You're more than welcome to attend. Bruce, it's always nice to see you at the concert. We do the second Saturday poetry every month. So that happens to be a picture when we did it in the church. We've been doing it now virtually the last 4 years. So there are those of you who are here for the first time to hear Kris's poetry, but bear in mind, we do this every month. So we hope to see you in a future program. We also do Native American drumming once a month as well. If you want more detail on that, please either visit our website or just send me an email, and I'll be happy to give you a deeper briefing on those outreach programs. And those are every month. And then once a year, we combine poetry, drumming, and music, and we do something called Conversations of the Sacred. So the Conversations of the Sacred, Carol Emerson now is the one who selects the sacred readings from all different faith traditions. We have them read by local poets. You can see the listing of poets who read for us last year here. And each reading is followed by a musical interlude, again, either from students from the university or Dan Kinney on the historical All Souls urban organ. And then once a year, we have a race, a 5K race, 2K walk to raise funds. We celebrate the role of the church in the community and the things that we do. We also raise funds to make the church accessible. Gladys Henderson was the host when we started this program. We used to do it in the church, and Gladys had to stop hosting the program because he couldn't make it up the stairs. When All Souls was built in 1896, life expectancy in the U.S. was less than 50 years. They didn't really care too much about accessibility, so we've got a real challenge with accessibility. And we also have a real challenge that there is not a bathroom attached to the church. So the role of this race is twofold. One, to celebrate the role of us in the community, and also to raise funds to make the church accessible, and also to put a bathroom next to the church. Every year in this race, going back 5 or 6 years, we have a group of poets called the Live Poets Society, and you'll recognize some of the poets there. They each year that they actually walk. Next year, we hope maybe we'll get some poets to run this next year as well. So please mark your calendar. So it was October 6th last year. It'll be the first Sunday in October, whatever it is in 2025. We'll announce the date soon. So again, on behalf of the folks at All Souls, I welcome you. And now my pleasure to turn you over to your host, Kathy Donnelly. Kathy, over to you.
Thank you very much. So we welcome Kris, but before that, I have a poem here. It's called North Shore, and it's by George Wallace. He's our first poet laureate of Suffolk County here in Long Island. North Shore, a land made tall by its trees. Hidden in rooftops, the crow recalls a cruel punishment which the sea endured on rock-heavy shores to the west. Summer cries like a tea kettle in the neighbor's kitchen. Hoping to capture the sound of crows, I step outside into wet morning grass and discover instead the paw prints of a neighborhood cat. This bird sang until it was bidden. So that's George, one of his 30 books of poetry. I'm very proud to have met Kris in several, actually at least two that I can think of offhand, venues. One was, Kris, correct me if I'm wrong, but Debbie Hauser, our current poet laureate, has a venue in Babylon at Jack's Jack, a little cafe. And then with Barbara Nowak, we bumped in again at Malloy College. And so liking his work, I invited him to be a reader, and that was months and months ago. So I'll read the bio. Kris, how do you pronounce your last name with the J? Javier?
Janvier. Janvier.
Janvier. Beautiful.
Yeah.
It sounds like it has a French sound to it.
It's a French name.
Yeah, beautiful. He's a poet, actor, author from Baldwin, New York. He has self-published his first ever book titled Drift in March of 2024. He's a member of the Multicultural Council of New York. He has performed in local open mics for 7 years. His poem, Train Conductor, is included in the anthology book Nassau County Voices in Verse, 2023. Following up his poem, I Wonder Where You Are, is included in Nassau County Voices in Verse, 2024. He was casted in a short film, The Bigger Picture, which is streaming now in Amazon Prime. I have to look that one up. Welcome, Kris. And Kris, before you start your reading, I spent some time yesterday in Manhattan at the Poet House, way, way at the southern tip of Manhattan. And they are welcomed me to tell everyone, which I'll put out on the email today, that if you've published a book in 2022 or 2023, you are welcome to send the information into them. I'll put the email on the chat, and they will put it in a sort of brochure. And then what happens is you send in your copy of your book for free. The entire library at the Poets House has been donated by the authors, and it's a gorgeous building. In fact, Manhattan is gorgeous down in that area. I'm astonished, right by the Freedom Tower. So I'll put the email on the chat, and anybody who's published a book in those 2 years, 22 and 23, are welcome to be a part of this at the Poet House. Okay, so Kris, it's all.
Yeah, that's great. I actually went to the Poets House for a gig, and it was a good time there. But I remember hearing that part. But that's my only book. That's my very first book, and I published in 24. So I don't have anything from 23 and 22. So yeah. So that's pretty much it. So
I'll get the next one.
thank you though. Yeah. All right,
Okay,
so
Kris, over to you.
I'm gonna get started. Yes. Okay. I'm just gonna get started now.
Okay.
Yes. Ladders, rocks, and boulders in their cabins from 4x4s. Drivers unloading product from the container of a straight truck parked by the Roddy shop. That cooler need a refill. Hedges stay still against the metal gate. Fringes are what happened? Okay. Fringes are tugging at power lines with their thin branches where the leaves have died. Crows have been chirping less frequently. The wind has been calmer. The sun has been warmer. The street is still breathing. The peace has remained since Election Day. Young and old people are seated in the bus on a single route to the town of Oyster Bay, some with a balance in their Metro card, some with a reduced fare, some with a transfer, some with none, one with a 7-day option. We're staring at each other without eye contact, observing every crease in our coats, hoodies, and jeans, as the robotic lady name every street from the intercom. The request for stops has been frequent, but so are the leaves that are hanging on strong as we're nearby the end of the route. The doors are open and I walked out. I looked back and noticed I was the only one because most went to work, some paid a visit, few went back home, and I'm just drifting. Poem. And my next one, 10 fluid ounces of cherry flavored medicine inside a burnt orange bottle designed by Walgreens. The white label sticker stamped with long scientific names of chemicals in the ingredient list. Yet I only know the word benzoate in these sprites I usually buy without understanding its purpose, but nonetheless I still indulge until my eyes bulge. Even gum is included in my Coke, and I indulge it more until my tongue give out. My trachea has always been showered in drugs while I'm alive, which reminds me of the time my voice changed at the age of 9. Poem. Cold radiators in a reception room, colder than the wintry breeze in a sunny day, slow strolls and slow talks on anecdotes, which eventually transform into epic stories by colleagues and acquaintances and longtime friends in their flannels and jeans and faux cashmeres all over the hardwood floor that was polished 2 days ago. Steamy coffee and tea runs down from the dispensers to the base of their paper cups from Dixie's that could hold up to 8 fluid ounces, an assortment of cookies stacked into a pyramid on a platter that'll soon be left with sprinkles, chocolate chips, raisins, nuts, and crumbs of baked batter by the time the open mic is in session. Poem. Sugar, salt, limestone, all in my fingertips, soil coated in my linen overalls and leather shoes untied, thorns and needles in my palms after hours of pulling roses and cactuses on a flat, secluded field of 600 yards across with stratus clouds partly shaded in the blue and less than a mile above me. Wheat stems in my potato sack, broken sickles and shovels, and withered sunflowers in my dumpster truck. Scraps of turbine blades all over the cabbage section. Fruit flies dug through the flesh of rotten tomatoes. They've eaten all the seeds before they've departed, all in their eyes. And in their eyes, they saw pieces of me slumped on the soil between roses and cactuses as they flew toward the pumpkins. Poem. I got a few haikus. Here we go. Wind and rubber tires clamor through the streets today. New conversations. Wind and rubber tires clamor through the streets today. New conversations. Dry ice can withstand 3 months of summer without melting in the heat. Dry ice can withstand 3 months of summer without melting in the heat. Beads on the box braids of Serena and Venus at the tennis court. Beads on the box braids of Serena and Venus at the tennis court. Watch Chicago or The Phantom of the Operas, perfect musicals. Watch Chicago or The Phantom of the Operas, perfect musicals. And now back to my wrens. This poem is called Brooklyn. It's an acrostic. Bottom rear of Long Island, rare air that breeds ingenuity. Obstacles breeds opportunities, overpasses, and underground railroads. Knowing these are in between them, lines that are coursed through by options and more. Never settle for less. Poem. I've been writing a lot, a whole lot. They're all untitled. As if in case you guys don't notice. So here we go. The crumbs of the undercarriage are on their greasy fingers from chomping skateboarders with pepperoni and sausage slices squelching in between their molars, the cracked ones, and their sore split tongues while dirtying their 2-month-old snake eyes inside their inflated, dimpled diamond faces, all reddened with veins on their domes. Ice cold Snapples, Celsius, Sprites, sloshing around their eroding bites as these athletes are forcing down whatever pieces that could barely fit in their throats. These chunks squeeze through slowly in their esophagus. Every millimeter of pain were felt by the skateboarders as they beat their chests repeatedly, at the same time breathing heavily, not realizing the pain. The redness becomes more apparent in their scleras. Poem. Now I'm going to read some poems off my book. Poem Drift is available now. You can get it off Amazon, ebook and paperback. The title is called Daily Bum. The passengers, including me, stepped out of the rail car of the F train to escape the aroma of puke and trash from a bum who sat alone after we all took the first whiff before we separate from him carrying Seatown bags of open boxes of Cheerios and Fruit Loops. Some of us took the stairs, some of us rode the escalator, leaving the subway all the way up into our next earthy shower, this time at Delancey in Essex. Poem. This poem is called Train Conductor. A weary train conductor swaggered slowly from the first rail car and across the platform with his head down and his black sport shades, fully uniform under his black puffer coat, black tote bag on his left hand, black backpack on his back, cigarette in between his right index and middle finger. As he took the last drag, that one passive puff formed a mini cloud until that madman walked towards it. The cloud split in two and ran across both cheekbones as he proceeded to drop the cigarette before he enters the Hempstead train station. I looked down at the remain, and for the distance, the only thing alive was the unburnt tobacco. The butt has been squashed on the concrete, the filter and paper buried in ancient dirt. Tobacco ashes smeared away. He must have came to punch out after a long tickets in the jerseys. But that poem. Let me go back. All right. All right. This one is untitled, so. A great blue whale propelled itself from the East River so high up that it went over the Brooklyn Bridge. A lemon-colored python wraps around the Empire State Building before it decides whether to strangle it or not. Lunar moths pollinate near bright jumbotrons in Times Square. Megalodons chill beside the Midtown Tunnel, while the great white sharks are by the Holland Tunnel. Pterodactyls lay their eggs on top of the Mercer Hotel, while badgers and spider monkeys run through hallways and rooms, pulling bed sheets from the inside. Colonies of bees and hornets are inside the auditorium of the Madison Square Garden. Wolves are howling on stage at the Met Opera. Garden snakes slither around bushes of Bryant Park. Orangutans are printing copies of their hands with copy machines at the New York Times headquarters. Eagles watching ostriches walk on stage from the mezzanine at Carnegie Hall. Snails and geckos swaggered their way home in Chinatown. Elephants blowing cornets and sax in jazz clubs from Blue Note to Lincoln Center. A flock of doves fly up and around the Freedom Tower in a swirl formation, while the other animals sat in silence and watch in the middle of the clear day. Poem. Right. A short one. The leaves were cherries once. Now, these cells are approaching apoptosis. Slowly but surely, yellow, orange, red, brown will soon cover ground in my backyard and wither, facing down away from the sun after it consumes.
Okay, Kris, if you come back off mute, we'll go do one more poem.
Okay. All right. So this one is a short one. So I'm going to go back from the top. Leaves were cherries once. Now these cells are approaching apoptosis. Slowly but surely, yellow, orange, red, brown will soon cover ground in my backyard and wither, facing down away from the sun after it consumes light and water for 3.5 months. I hope these branches stays so you can come back as a fruit once again. Poem. So.
Thank you, Kris. If you want,
Yeah.
you want to do one more? For the encore?
Yeah, okay, let me just go back to my book. I got a short one in my book. Yes. All right, here we go. This one is called A Black Lady. A black lady pouts with a pink lipstick and lip liners in front of the iPhone screen for some snaps on the seat she occupied on a train ride that slashed through the rain at 11 a.m. Moments later, she sent pictures of the bottom half of her face to her boyfriend while he's home. Poem. That's it. This is my
Okay. Thank you, Kris.
poem.
Okay.
And yeah.
Great. We'll bring it back for an encore. Now, at this point, please bear with me. We did have technical difficulties. So when we get to the list of folks who are going to read, the order might be a little bit skewed. And if you didn't get on the list in time, don't worry. We'll give you all an opportunity to read. But first of all, Kris, thank you for those I would describe those poems as very gritty, filled with lots of images. The images of boulders and fruit drinks and the image, I can still smell that guy on the car. I mean, that was that was really something. And those images. So with that little distraction in mind, okay, Marvin, you're up first.
Okay, could you hear me?
Yes, you're coming through loud and clear.
Okay, the title of the poem is Schmendrick. I didn't know what Schmendrick meant until years later. I only knew it hurt when she called me that. while serving me in the high school cafeteria. It wasn't only that she said it, she bellowed it. So kids in the third floor gym must have heard it above the din of, "Shoot the ball, Joey. What kind of pass was that?" I was 14, I think I was. Not even 5 feet tall, not even 100 pounds. School was painful enough. Kids made fun of me between classes, in classes, on lines, but they were kids. At lunch was this woman behind the counter. When I asked for macaroni and cheese, I always said, please. She always roared, "Schmendrick." I lost my appetite right there on line. When I returned to a table, those already there called me, "Here comes the Schmendrick." What the hell does it mean? It can't be anything good. The woman looks Polish. Maybe it's a nasty word in her language. Son of a bitch, maybe, or midget, dwarf, or what? I told my mom, "I'm throwing up in school. It's the cafeteria food. Please make my lunch." So she did. In the back of the study hall, I ate when no one was looking, never leaving any crumbs, any evidence of my illegal eating. Till one day, about to finish my cheese sandwich, I heard a voice and saw this woman. "Where have you been, little one? Mary has been worried about you." "Where's that little one?" she asked. "Maybe something happened." "Passing by, I saw you here. I'm going home, my daughter's sick. Don't you like the chicken a la king or spaghetti and the meatballs? Even if you don't, go see Mary. She's worried. You remind her of her son. She lost many years ago. Just say hello to Mary. Now I have to see my child." I shook my head up and down, even when she was gone. That night I told my mom I'd like to try the school food again. Again came the next day. "Vegetable soup, please." She looked up. "Schmendrick, my Schmendrick." Now I know what Schmendrick means. I smile about it. I've grown since those days. Not much, but some.
Thank you, Schmedrick. Okay, well done. Okay, Virginia, over to you, all the way to Shelter Island. Got to come off mute as well.
Hi, everyone. Yes. I wrote this poem 4 years ago when there was some possibility of my husband having cancer. That was 4 years ago. Well, now he does. So I'm going to read this poem as a talisman. It was written 4 years ago. Things went well then. Let's see now. Lanterns of Autumn. Sassafras is one, golden like a lamp in the night. Sky darkening around its outline, fractaled. I stand where I intend to bury bulbs and weep for the fright in my mind's night, unconfirmed. Yet a scan, anomalous, pulls me back through the years to his cancer fight and then triumph. The lantern glows with life, even in a temporary death, but we are older now, and I look at lanterns of autumn striking our woods with gold, and I'm less sure of the spring. I have been here before, 24 years ago in our 50s, when life held years to go. He is 83, and I near 79, and even in the November afternoon, with summer air, the night is nigh. The lanterns of autumn glow but for a moment, of days before they too tatter asunder to the ground.
Thank you, Virginia. James Horn, over to you.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead, James.
Boy, I'm sorry about that thing. I don't know what happened there. That was me that did that.
Don't worry about it. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm trying to know what happened when Trump won. Did God really support Trump due to him being against the abortion issue? The Democrats now represent upper scale highly educated, professional, and popular instead of working middle and lower class. We're dissatisfied with the rising cost of living and gas versus groceries prices. Lower and middle class represents majority, enjoying having a macho, strong, and masculine image like Trump while wanting revenge. They got what they wanted. Now let's see what happens and if Trump lives up to his promises, which may be hard to meet. Listen to what voters have to say and meet their wants and needs, and you'll never go wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Very timely. Okay, the next three, we have Richard, Claude, and JR. So Richard, over to you.
Okie dokie. So I'm going to read a poem from my last collection, Imperfect Knowledge, and needs a little background. So one of my sons is married to an Ecuadorian woman, and it's a long story, they had two weddings, a secular wedding in her house, and then the whole family went down to Loja, Ecuador for a religious wedding. And this poem was written in Loja. Loja, the high Sierra, of woolen blankets and balmy days, city of 1,000 roosters crowing the dawn and sunrise bells, and 4 in the morning drunks rousting by my hotel window, and garbage trucks that sing me their little song, give me your litter, as they make their early morning rounds. It is a clean city, with many churches and their bells, calling in the morning, in the evening, calling the faithful to mass that starts, completes the day. It is a blessed city, founded by Spaniards who brought with them Jesus, the cross, the crown of thorns in every church, the nailed limbs, the wounds that bleed. He who suffered for us, it is said, and the mother who birthed him, the miracle of the Virgin everywhere, the mother who intercedes.
Thank you, Richard. Beautiful. Okay, Claude, over to you.
Good morning, everybody. Well, we had an election. James had his poem. This one was written in about 2018, and it's about the taboo of words. 7 words were forbidden for the CDC to use. They were fetus, vulnerable, science-based, evidence-based, transgender, entitlement, diversity. And now it's 2024, and RFK said in a little video that he's going to do everything he can and everything's going to be empirically based and evidence-based. So we'll see how the conflict works out over time. Trump administration forbids use of 7 taboo words by Center for Disease Control scientists. Do I have any entitlement to the future? I'm old. I'm a child. I'm disabled. I'm transgender. I'm female. I'm vulnerable. I'm Native American. My Medicaid's been stolen. My Medicare's next. Also, my internet, my Planned Parenthood access, my Social Security threatened, my sacred land violated by another lying president. I'm opioid dependent. I'm a fetus mutated by poorly tested chemicals that pass through the placenta. Roundup on the wheat, in the water, tainting the air I must breathe. Glyphosate, I repeat, is spreading everywhere. There's so much diversity that we need that makes our country great. The conclusion is evidence-based, science-based. Our studies widely dissected, our recommendations openly shared. As George Orwell weeps in the deceit, forbidding truth's speech from the lips of CDC workers, our doctors, incredulous, our professors, emeritus, knowing how Big Brother intercedes, first taking our freedom, piece by piece, then herding us like sheep into brainwash meekdom, sterilizing our thinking unless we stand outraged together against the greediest censors, declaring what words incriminate themselves as they list the 7 taboo terms italicized in this verbiage.
Thank you, Claude. Okay, JR, over to you.
Here we go. Good morning, all. Exciting morning. Thank you, Dan, for getting us out of there. Thank you, Kris. What a wonderful reading. And if you can hear me, Kris, do you want to play Poetry Roulette? I am celebrating number 9, 24 Shades of Purple. This would be 24 poems written in a 24-hour poetry marathon. So tell me a number, Kris.
3.
Okay. So this was written in hour 3. February, not July. My birthday came and went, and I thought of you. Yours came and it went, and of course, I thought of you. Think of you every day, missing you, though the missing feels like less, and that feels wrong. But I think you know what I mean, especially after 5 years. But let's go back 40 years. I'm guessing, but it feels right. Your birthstone, February, amethyst. Mine, July, ruby. I say to you, Mikey, you will never need your birthstone. Never buy a necklace or earrings because it represents you and your connection to the month that you were born. I remember how you rolled your eyes, exhaled a big brother sigh, wishing this were over already, but you knew how detailed I can be, definitive, precise, if not concise. And I don't really like red, don't connect to it other than Christmas and St. Valentine's Day, though Purple Hearts are better than red. I summarized it. Finally, your eyes said, stopping their search for respite. Since you will never need your birthstone, I'm taking it. You can have mine if you want it, but I'm taking amethyst. You can keep February and snow and all that cold, blustery frost. I'll keep July. Perfect for me, summer, everything. And now with purple, amethyst, it's mine, okay? I'll never forget your laughing assent. So glad it was over. An agreement made that meant nothing to you, but even after all these years, means so much to me. Thank you.
Well done, JR. Okay, so we got 2 more people that put their names in chat. So again, if your name is not called and you still want to read, just put your name in chat. So I see Shu. That's great. We'll add you there, and any others will. So the next group of 3 will be Mike Daly, followed by Dan Kerr, followed by Shu. Mike Daly, over to you.
Good morning. I wrote this poem a few years ago for the veterans in our community. Thank you for your service and the hardships you endured to keep this country's freedoms safe and well secured. Thank you for your service, for the times you may have cried as you found a fallen soldier and knelt there by his side. Thank you for your service as you gave us all your time, for all the scars you carry on your body and your mind. Thank you for your service and the courage you have shown when faced with unknown forces and feeling all alone. Thank you for your service and the time you spent away from all your friends and family. That's a debt we can't repay. Thank you for your service. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, there was a discussion before the program began about politics and how you really not appropriate to discuss politics or religion. And those of you who are familiar with my poetry know I'd say more than 60% of what I write is about politics and religion. So in this, and I'm also, as I read this poem, I'm reminded of my favorite founding father, Thomas Jefferson, who said, let's not let a difference of opinion with regard to religion or philosophy or politics come between friends. And I'm also reminded of Gladys Henderson's comment to me when I first met her that I needed to remember that poetry is but another form of prayer. And I'm also mindful of the fact that we're approaching Veterans Day. So with all that, and I wanted to say something about the election, and I thought about a poem I had written when I went to Penn Station the day after the 2016 election, and I saw Hillary Clinton giving her commencement speech, and I saw women crying and their disappointment. I was going to read that one, but then I thought, and I said, you know something? I think what is more appropriate is something my father used to have on his wall at home. And it was actually written by General Douglas MacArthur during World War II when he was stationed in Australia as the acting, he was the supreme commander of the Allied forces. And those of you who remember your World War II history, he had been bounced out of the Philippines and went to Australia. And this was a poem which I think has a message that's very applicable to as we reflect on the election results. And it's simply called A Prayer for His Son by General Douglas MacArthur. And here goes. Build me a son, O Lord, who will be strong enough to know when he is weak and brave enough to face himself when he is afraid. One who will be proud and unbending in honest defeat and humble and gentle in victory. Build me a son whose wishes will not take the place of his deeds, a son who will know thee, and that to know himself is the foundation stone of all knowledge. Lead him, I pray, not in the path of ease and comfort, but under the stress and spur of difficulties and challenge. Here, let him learn to stand up in the storm. Let him learn compassion for those who fail. Build me a son whose heart is clear, whose goal will be high, a son who will master himself before he seeks to master other men, one who will reach into the future, yet never forget the past. And after all these things are said, add I may pray, enough of a sense of humor, so that he may always be serious, yet never take himself too seriously. Give him humility, so that he will always remember the simplicity of true greatness, the open mind of true wisdom, and the weakness of true strength. Then I, his father, will dare to say, I have not lived in vain. Amen. Thank you. Okay, Shu, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. So I post my poem on the chat so you can read along. Even though, we have a lot of things going on now, you're happy, you're depressed, or you're whatever in your life, enjoy this beautiful season, the weather's still warm, so enjoy yourself. The title of my poem is Autumn Night. Cold moon rests on a barren branch, longing veiled in autumn frost. That's it.
Thank you, Sue.
行了，他那个开幕也修好了，有课了。
Okay, so at this stage, we'll Kathy, I know you probably want to read. Anyone else who wanted to read and didn't get a chance to read? I think you all got a chance to read. So before we bring back Kris for his encore, Kathy, over to you.
Thank you. Shu, that was beautiful, absolutely beautiful, like a haiku more, but lovely image.
Thank you.
And Judy, I loved your poem as well. You're such a articulate writer. So I wrote this poem recently. It hasn't been workshopped yet, so it is what it is. It's called Beyond the Edges, and it's in the Ukraine. An old man stood on a tall grassy hill, staring into the distance. His blue jeans and knapsack implied he was not on business, just passing through. He was looking for something. In his youth, his family had kept a small village going. He knew this, he had helped. They were the quiet folk behind the scenes, made everything work. Wood collected, cut for fires, seeds gathered, sowed, crops weeded, watered, harvest. No one went hungry. Graves dug, prayers said, bodies buried. New generations took their place. He had traveled alone, no signs to follow. Sunflowers grew everywhere the eye could see, randomly in fields along train tracks, no one watching over them. Remnants of a few small structures, he looked for something familiar. Sure, he was in the right spot. Now open fields, dirt roads, setting sun. How could it all be gone? He heard voices in his mind from old townsfolks, horses neighing in their barns, birds flying by in flocks, swooping down, disappearing in the brush for supper, sleep. How could anyone want this to disappear? What purpose could it possibly serve? Were there alternatives? Did anyone ask?
Thank you, Kathy. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, Kris, back to you for an encore.
Okay. All right, here we go.
You want to put your, you
So,
can put your video on if you want. You don't have to, but if you want to put the video on, you can. But go ahead.
Oh,
If it's a problem, don't worry about it, Kris.
yeah, I'll just yeah, don't I'm good. This poem I'm going to close it out with is called How I Got Famous, and it's in my book called Drift. How I Got Famous. I want you all to guess who I am in this poem. How I Got Famous. Before I draw a picture of a trumpet on the right bald spot next to his mohawk of a French fan in France, before I wear my crown of trumpets with a crooked smile as the first jazz musician who graces the cover of Time magazine, before Hello Dolly knocked the Beatles off the #1 spot of the Billboard charts, before Larry refuses to promote What a Wonderful World because he don't like the live in 3456 107th Street, Corona, Queens for about 30 years, before me and Lady Ella sing 47 songs together, before I marry Lucille, before I pass away in my sleep. I was part of an ensemble for Connie's Hot Chocolates at the Hudson Theater on West 44th Street on June 20th, 1920. Grouped up at the pit between 8 exits, lower left, 5 on my right, while we were behind the crowd, and the stage was in front of the crowd. About 1,000 husbands and wives, the country, or maybe the world, in their dinner suits and loose dresses with a cost average of $10 to $20, hats on, hats off.
Kris, I'm sorry, you broke up, so we didn't get that last closing. I apologize for that. I don't think the web connection is that good. Hiram, I think I may have missed you. Do you still want to read, Hiram?
Well, sure. Maybe Mr. Janvier can come back on and at least finish that poem. I've got a fairly short poem to present if there's time. So I've appreciated the perseverance today and this past week. This is a love poem, in this case, a love poem to a field. It first appeared in a journal called Innisfree. It's titled Life with a Candle. I want to marry this field, truly, truly, and simply, with its wings curving the corners and its smoothness stunning my knees. All of my heart is here far around me, and there's humming and leaning, even the trifling breeze. I want this field for my living, to vow to its edges that nothing comes true without green. Nothing seems as bold as my longings, except sloping, and nothing wakes on my shoulder but rustling. I hope the strangest hopes in this field
ever bending. From here, I know that this much of my all is clear. Before there were hills or even eyes to up over, there was a distance beyond us, a long, far away that can never come near. There was living. I want to carry this field in my arms by its being to a maybe that's certain, so that our future can flicker on grasses and our children will wave from the clouds. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Hiram. Okay. So, Kathy, you got to come off mute, Kathy. Kathy, you're still muted. There you go.
Can we check in on Kris? Kris, are you there?
Kris, you want to try again, Kris, that last poem?
Yeah, start from the beginning, Kris, please.
From the beginning,
Please.
meaning like from the top.
I think that would be nice. And we're guessing who you're talking about. I already guessed. It's on chat.
Yeah.
But anyway, you kind of gave it away with the Hello Dolly, I think. I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure. But please read it again. Or
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Let me hopefully we won't break up again. Let me just let's go on with this.
Yes.
All right. Here we go. Before I draw a picture of a trumpet on the right bald spot next to his mohawk of a French fan in France, before I wear my crown of trumpets with a crooked smile as the first jazz musician who graces the cover of Time magazine before Hello Dolly. Before Hello Dolly knocked the Beatles off the #1 spot of the Billboard charts, before Larry refuses to promote What a Wonderful World because he don't like the song, before I live in 3456 107th Street, Corona, Queens for about 30 years, before me and Lady Ella sang 47 songs together, before I marry Lucille, before I pass away in my sleep. I was part of an ensemble for Connie's Hot Chocolates at the Hudson Theater on West 44th Street on June 20th, 1929, grouped up at the pit between 8 exits on the lower left corner, 3 on my left, 5 on my right, while we were behind the crowd, and the stage were in front of the crowd. About 1,000 husbands and wives, dapper men and flappers all over the country, or maybe the world, in their dinner suits and loose dresses, with a cost average of $10 to $20, hats on, hats off, fedoras, tops, Coke, newsboys, bob cuts on the cloches, squared stones on her choker, diamonds on her drop earrings, low waist belts, knees out from her slinky dress, Mary Janes on her feet, all for her to look boyish. But business suits were his everyday thing, single or double-breasted, black ties, black Oxfords, black Knicks straight out of his white-collar jobs. Seats were filled quickly. All it took was a quarter to get in. All sold out on this opening night. The show began. Act 1, we play. Scene 1, scene 2, scene 3. My spit, my sweat from my hot breath all inside of my trumpet. My fingerprints all over that body I have ownership to. But I'm just getting started, and I'm still smiling. I already accepted Andy's request. It was Satchmo's time to shine. Scene 4, Fat and plays the chords in the background. And I blew the chorus, and after that I sang the chorus with my raspy voice. The people sat still with their eyes on me. Attention was paid that night. That was another quarter well spent. My skin was sucking in the heat from their beaming stares, including Leroy and his orchestra. Ain't misbehaving. I'm saving my love for you. The drum starts to roll after the last word of that line. The ensemble joined in on the breakdown. Everybody had my back with their violins, trumpets, clarinets, chords in unison, claps all over the room. I'm staring at the crowd, but I don't see nobody. I know they're watching me. They probably ignored the stage, but the lights got brighter as the show progressed. After Act Two, the show ended, and I quickly ran back uptown to rejoin with Dickerson at Connie's Inn and play for the rest of the night in front of the same type of crowd of maybe 500, some on the dance floor, some on their seats where they get their tomato juice, tomato soups, French fries, celery, spinach, lima beans, cheese, and ice cream, all under $1 each, except chicken sandwiches, fish, steaks, salads, and eggs. Hell, Chinese food was served there. Don't let me get started on the drinks. Red Bordeaux was cheaper than regular champagne by a quart. The wine was 5, the champagne was 10. The beer, brandy, scotch, whiskeys, liquor, rum, all under $1 each. The Eminem brothers were the best bootleggers in my book, giving opportunities to someone like me playing in front of a whites only club. But it was the place to be. The reviews were magical because of us. I'm sure we played that same song. Besides, that's where the song was born. It grew popularity before I even did my thing on it. Thanks to Margaret, Paul, Fats, Andy, Russell, with his Hallelujah singers, and last but not least, Connie's hot chocolate. Next thing I knew, my name was on the playbill, and I became a star with that particular song. Weeks later, I went to the studio with Dickerson and recorded my version of Ain't Misbehavin' poem.
Congratulations. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
And who are you talking about? Are you talking about Satchmo? Mr. Louis Armstrong?
Yeah. Yes, that's his nickname. Yeah. Satchmo, yeah. So I was wondering people recognize the nickname, but I don't think everybody knows the nickname. So I just sneak that name in there.
Oh gosh, I grew up with his music, and he was in movies, which was why I feel like I know him. But I grew up in the 50s and the 60s, so yeah, he was amazing. Love that voice.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes. Yeah, it was yeah.
a different time. And I
For
mean,
me, yeah.
Huge Billie Holiday fan.
It took some research. Yeah, I did some research on I was just thinking about the time that he was in because like I write I'm thinking of a narrative and it was like, okay, let me just find a small story. And I picked one. I found it.
Very good. Kris, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Sorry about those interruptions. And I don't know why or how, but we just have to ignore them because, there's so many, what do you call it? People that know how to hack. So,
yeah.
So let me just
learn from the experience.
thumb this up so everyone can start their day. And Wendy Trons will be with us next month. She's great. She's wonderful. She'll share her stories with us. And lastly, I just want to say, Dan, before you want to say something to say goodbye, Building Bridges. You'll see it in the chat under Judy's name, but that's the name of the poetry venue, similar to what we're doing here, except no open readers. But the readers are from all over the world. It's very worthwhile. It's the whole thing is by George Wallace, who was the first poet laureate of Long Island, of Suffolk County, I should say. And he's behind this. It's held at the Walt Whitman House and birthplace. it's very, very worthwhile. And that's why we just lost half a dozen people, because they've shifted over to that. So if you're interested, yeah, building bridges, Walt Whitman birthplace, and can find their commercial for it. Okay, that's it for me. Dan?
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. And thanks for the perseverance. We'll learn from it. I've got some ideas of how we can avoid that hacking in the future. First time it happened to us, but we need to learn from the experience and move on. So I'm going to stop recording here.